Hey there, Walt here from WaltInPA, and I'd like to welcome you to episode 11 of the Motorcycle Adjacent podcast. We are flying without a net in this episode. I'm sitting out here in this cold-ass shed. It is about 35 degrees. I've got a hot cup of tea that I don't expect to be hot for very long, and I'm just kind of winging it. I've been dreading this episode all week, not because I don't enjoy doing the show, but just because I knew it was going to be rather uncomfortable. And I still haven't made any final decisions on how I'm going to make this space relatively warm. And I really don't want to have to go into the house and try to keep the kids quiet for an hour while I record this thing. So we're going to trudge right along. It's probably going to be a quicker episode, mostly because I just want to get back in the warm house. So let's get to it. All right, to start off this episode, I want to give you kind of an update on all things WaltInPA. I know I like to throw these in every once in a while. Hopefully you don't find them very boring, but I like them because, I don't know, it makes me feel a little connected to the audience, how I let them know that, this is kind of the trajectory that we're on. If you're interested, you can kind of hang out and go along for the ride with me. So I like to do these little podcast updates, YouTube channel updates, and just keep you in the loop if you're interested. So, I guess it was a couple weeks ago, actually it would have been the end of November. It was a Black Friday sale. I decided to purchase an online course that I had been looking at for quite some time now. It's called Project 24. It is a system that's been around for a little while now. I first learned about it. It was probably well over a year ago. I read a book called Work Energy by, I don't remember if it's Jim Harner or Jim Harper. A pretty interesting guy. He wrote an interesting book about his experience with online sales and this journey he had where he launched a photography website and then was doing kind of the tutorials and tips and things like that. And then he sold an e-course of some sort on Black Friday and made like an obscene amount of money in a single day. I think he made like over $100,000. And it kind of opened his eyes to the ability to make a living online. So, I read this book. I was pretty interested in it. I followed along with the Income School blog and website for a bit. Followed along with the YouTube channel for a while. Then Nate came along from Channel Makers, and I started watching that. It's all under the Income School umbrella. And I thought, it'd be really cool to do this Project 24 thing that they're talking about. It seems like an interesting course. I've read lots of reviews over the last year or so, and everyone seems to really like this thing and get lots of benefits out of it. So when Black Friday rolled around and they announced the sale, and they weren't doing a big percentage off or anything like that. I think they may have knocked $50 off the annual price. I took a hard look at it and I decided, you know what? I've got a little extra money. I want to invest it in myself. I want to invest it in my brand and get some information, get some help on developing the YouTube channel. I also wanted to pivot my website. I've had this WaltInPA.com for over a decade, and it's been just a mix of different stuff. And I wanted to refocus it and use it as supplemental information for my YouTube channel, my podcast, and create a way of, kind of advertising and producing additional content. So I finally pulled the trigger. I joined Project 24. I've been slowly working my way through the blogging course, which I'm going to do first. They recommend that you pick one and kind of stick with it until you get it. And then you can expand and start taking on additional courses, because they do blogging, they do YouTube, they do, I believe it's like email marketing, affiliate sales. There's a bunch of other stuff. So I thought I would start simple, since I have a blog and I used to enjoy writing quite a bit, that I would kind of start there. And that's kind of the way things are going. I've done a lot of changes on WaltInPA.com, kind of changing the focus of it. All of my old stuff is still there. I'm just not, it's not prevalent anymore. It's the focus has become motorcycles, and that's what it will be driving forward as I produce motorcycle content and effectively YouTube videos to supplement that content. So everything kind of goes hand in hand with the master plan here, and we're going to tie everything in with the podcast as well. So if you've got a minute, head on over to WaltInPA.com. Check out some of the motorcycle content that I have there, and let me know what you think. On a similar note, it's worth noting that I am incredibly jealous of John over at Road Reality. I talked about his channel in the last episode. I've had my eye on this vlogging camera for a while now. I believe it's a Sony ZV-1. And it's a little point-and-shoot camera, but it's really popular with bloggers on a budget. So if you don't want to spend big money on, or if you don't want to spend $1,000 plus on a mirrorless camera with detachable lenses, like these little point-and-shoot things are kind of the way to go. And I've had my eye on this camera for a little while now, but at like $700. I haven't been able to justify spending the money, especially not after I just dropped like $350 on this course. So, I've been wanting it because right now I'm recording this whole thing on a combination of MacBook with I don't even know what brand mic this is, and an older DJI Osmo Action to pick up the footage. And it's an action camera, so it doesn't have depth of field. It's got some other shortcomings, and I've just wanted to upgrade to something more appropriate for vlogging or for video podcasting, this sort of thing. But again, haven't been able to pull the trigger. And then out of nowhere, John posted a video today, basically showing off his brand new shiny camera. It looks really cool. It sounds like it's got loads and loads of functions. I am definitely jealous. I definitely want one, but I think I'm gonna have to wait at least till after Christmas. Maybe I can justify dropping some money on a new camera. It's gonna be a hard sell with the wife, but we'll see how it goes. So if you're watching the video feed of this podcast, you can see that it's really dark behind me, which means that there's no light streaming in the windows. The sad part is it's a little after 6 p.m. It is pitch black outside. It's cold. Winter is here. The riding season is almost over. For me, my goal is to ride until Christmas. I feel like if I can at least get on the bike semi-regularly until Christmas, I had a really good season. Like I feel like it's like I got my money's worth out of the riding season. And then January and February are a complete and utter crapshoot. So last year, I think I was riding. So I always get confused. Last year, I rode 1 month, but not the other. The year before that, I rode the opposite month. So let's just say 2 years ago, I was able to ride in January, rode 0 in February. Last year, I rode 0 in January, rode some in February. It's just been that kind of thing. We get cold snaps, we get snow, we get ice, we get salted roads, and it makes getting out and riding really difficult in January, February. Once we get into March, the weather starts to taper off. It's still cold, still blustery, but it's doable. And so basically, my goal each year is to ride up until Christmas and then squeeze in any possible rides between then and let's say mid-March, back when things start to kind of return back to some sort of normalcy. So there hasn't been a whole lot of riding going on in the past 2 weeks, or since I recorded the last episode. I really haven't done much in the way of riding. I rode to work once for an unexpected insurance meeting, because like every other business, they change insurance providers every year to keep costs down. So there was a meeting for that I had to go in for. The weather was mild. It was mid-40s. So I decided to take the bike, and wound up being a nice ride in. A little chilly, but all in all, nice ride. So a few days after that ride into work, I think I may have gotten out for another hour, just a short ride around the area. Nothing really long, nothing extravagant. And then what day was it? I had an unexpected free day of riding. My wife had some schedule changes. I reached out to the guys in Discord to see if they were up for a cold weather ride. Everyone had some stuff going on, so I wound up going out by myself. And the plan was to do this little out and back route that I do. So as opposed to loop where you kind of start at one, do this big circle, and then eventually come home. There's this one road that I like to ride. Basically, I go out, I turn around, and I come back. It's pretty much the best way to explain it. It's this road called Huff's Church Road, not far from home. And at one end, it starts in like Bally, and the other end is all the way out in Fleetwood, I believe. It's a nice, fairly long ride. Well, in terms of like getting out for an hour and 15 minutes, like it's a really nice ride. I really enjoy the road, assuming that it hasn't been freshly oil and chipped, which that did take place not this year but last year. So it was just no fun at all for several weeks. But otherwise, it's a nice road with some nice twisty sections. It is not very technical. It's not a very trafficked road, so it's just a fun road that I enjoy being on. The only thing you have to worry about though is deer. There are a lot of fields and farms along there, so just keep your eyes peeled for deer if you ever find yourself on Huff's Church Road. So anyway, that was the plan. I hopped on the Kawasaki Ninja 400. I looked at the gas gauge and I saw that I had like half a tank, and I thought, well, I'm not planning on going all that far. I'm not going to waste time running down to the gas station. Maybe I'll swing by and get gas on the way home. So I go out, and I wound up taking the back way over to Huff's Church Road, which led me past the Douglas Township one-room schoolhouse, which I did a video on a while back. I stopped mostly just to get a picture of the Ninja in front of the old schoolhouse. I went from there over to this place called Padre Pio. It's a religious site, and Padre Pio, the head guy, the place that the person that this whole thing is kind of centralized around, had stigmata. The place is actually on the roadside attractions website, as you can see Padre Pio's bloody glove. I've never actually been in the place, but it's a pretty big place. I just kind of rode in and around, kind of looked at statues. So eventually I make my way over to Huff's Church Road. I take a couple of pictures in front of Huff's Church, and I start making my way down towards Fleetwood. As I'm getting down Fleetwood, I decide that I want to ride some more. It's not super cold. I'm pretty comfortable, and I'm just not ready to turn around and go home. So I decided to detour. Right before the end of the road, I turned off, and I decided to head out towards Kutztown. And my plan was to go to this little place called Four Monkeys Coffee. They're a coffee roaster, a coffee shop in Kutztown, like in the college town. And just a cool place. I hear that the owner is big into motorcycles. I've never actually met him. And I thought, well, maybe this would be a good opportunity to bump into him. Maybe I'll pick up some coffee to bring home because I had my backpack on me. And I'll get a cup of coffee while I'm there to warm up. It'll be a nice little stop along the way. So I make my way over to Four Monkeys. I'm just about to pull into the parking lot, and I'm looking at the building, and it looks like there's some paper or something up over the front door, and the lights don't appear to be on. So rather than pull in and walk up to the door to see that they were closed, I just kept on going. I took Route 737 out a little ways out past Kutztown. I wound up getting to this one point in the road where it splits. 737 bears to the right, and then there's this other road that goes to the left. Every time I've been down there, I always go to the left. It's where it takes you out towards Hawk Mountain and Route 145 and whatnot. So when I got to that split, I thought, well, that takes me out a ways. This 737, I think, will take me up into Crumsville, and eventually I can pick up 145 down 662, back towards home. So I went right, and then I was on that road for a little while. It started getting colder. I'm watching my gas gauge begin to drop, and I thought, well, I don't know how far out 145 kicks in. Like, I don't know where I'm going to start recognizing things. So I decide, I'll just turn on this road. This looks kind of sort of familiar, and I will take that for a while. So I turn on this road, and I'm riding for a little while, and I'm watching my gas gauge dip down a little bit more. So I decide, all right, I am going to pull over, and I need to be rescued by the GPS. I'll get my phone out of my pocket, I'll turn on my Cena, and then I'll just set up turn-by-turn directions for the route home. So I park on this hill. So I park on the hill, I get off the bike, get the phone out of my pocket, plug in my home address into the GPS, get everything set up, hop back on the bike, and just before I pull off, I realize that the gas gauge is blinking at me. And I thought, well, shit, I don't know how far I can get on reserve on this bike. I've never actually let it get this far. So I ride up the hill. As I crest the hill and things settle back out again, the gas gauge returns back to like 2 bars. So I thought, okay, it was just parked on the hill. That's all it was. Nothing to worry about. So I'm riding a little while, and then 2 bars turns into 1 bar. And then I had the range up instead of an odometer. So I'm looking at like 1 bar, and it says I can go like 45 miles, 50 miles, something like that. So I'm not overly concerned. I'm sure that I can get home with 45 miles left in the tank. But, back in my mind, I'm a little worried, about the gas. I know that if I see a gas station, I'm going to stop and get gas. So I'm riding along a little bit longer, and then next thing you know, I have no bars left. Now the gas gauge is flashing at me, but it says I've got like 35 miles left of range. Okay, still nothing to worry about. 35 miles will definitely get me to a gas station. Nothing to panic over. So I'm going a little bit further. I'm starting to get closer to home. I'm using Calimoto, the GPS app, or the motorcycle app. I have it set up for twisty roads, so not only is it keeping me off of main roads, but it is taking me down some backcountry roads. I don't see any businesses, let alone gas stations, anywhere near me. And it almost feels like the app is leading me further and further away to loop me back around, all in the hopes of keeping me on these twisty roads. It's exactly what the app is supposed to do. But it's a little nerve-wracking when you're quickly running out of gas. So finally, I get to the point where I know where I am. I know that I'm not far from home, but I'm like it's not like a mile down the road either. And then the range on my display blanks out. Now it's just showing me a line. My gas gauge is flashing at me. It won't tell me how much range I have left. And now I'm starting to worry because I've got a decision to make. I've got a couple of miles to go before I get back towards civilization. And then once I get there, I basically have 3 options. I can make a right, and I can go several miles down the road to a gas station in this little town of Ole. And I'll be going away from home, but I know there's a gas station down there. My other option is to go straight through the intersection, several miles down the road. Eventually, it will lead me out to Route 662, where there's a gas station kind of on the corner, or also out of the way, or I can make a left and head back towards Boyertown. Probably the longest stretch to get to a gas station, but it's headed back in the direction of home. So I kind of weigh my options, and I make a left. And I'm cruising along down Route 73 doing 55, 60 miles an hour in 6th gear, trying to just let the thing sip on the gas as little as possible. And then I'm getting angry at cars that seem to be slowing down for no reason, so I'm on and off the throttle. Oh, man. The whole time, I've got the gas gauge flashing at me. I'm not seeing anything on the display for range. I'm legitimately worried because at that point I had ridden over 10 miles since the display disappeared. I had no idea how accurate that thing is. I've never had the gas gauge down that low. And I legitimately thought that I was going to be calling my wife from the side of the road, asking her to bring me a gas can. I was convinced. It was a long way to get to the gas station, and I didn't think I had much of anything left in the tank. Fortunately, I did make it to the gas station. I was able to get there. The bike never shut off. The bike never sputtered. I pull up to the gas pump, huge sigh of relief, get everything turned off, and I start pumping. So the Ninja, I believe, has a 3.7 gallon fuel tank. It took like 3.25 gallons or something like that. So in theory, I had roughly a half a gallon of gas left in the tank. And being conservative, let's just say that bike gets 50 miles per gallon. It gets better than that. But depending on how heavy-handed you are with a throttle, it really messes up your fuel consumption. So let's just say 50 miles per gallon. In theory, I had maybe another 25 miles left in the tank, which I guess kind of sort of would have been right when the range indicator shut off. So yeah, I mean, there was nothing to worry about, but that didn't stop me from being absolutely panicked, thinking that I was going to be calling my wife to rescue me. One interesting thing about this whole scenario is that I usually keep. So the Ninja 400 is pretty basic. It's doesn't have a lot of frills. So it has an odometer, it has trip meters and stuff. Instead of using the odometer, I set it on fuel economy. So every time I fill it up with gas, I'll reset the trip meter so that I can see how much gas I'm using per fill up, or how many miles I'm going until I fill up. And usually I leave it on the fuel consumption just so I can get a rough idea of how hard I'm being on the throttle. And there's this tiny little icon that pops up in the bottom right hand when you're in like economical driving situations or scenarios. So, when the gas gauge is starting to dip, you can just be gentle on the throttle, and this little icon will pop up to let you know that you're using your fuel efficiently. When the range estimation went off, so did that indicator. So it would have been nice if that thing would at least have lit up to let me know when I was using fuel efficiently. Not that I wasn't, because of how much I was babying the bike getting back to the gas station, but still, it would have been nice to have that little indicator. It would have been nice to have a count up. I know my Honda CB650, when I would get that thing below, the bottom fuel level, when I hit, reserve, it would start counting up mileage to let me know how many miles I'd gone since I had entered reserve. I don't know that I've ever let the Yamaha get that far. I know usually I get gas when the gas light comes on, but I can't remember what happens if you continue to ride after that. I don't remember whether it starts counting up miles or not. I don't know whether the Ninja did that because I had the fuel economy or the fuel range setting on. Maybe if I had the odometer setting or a trip meter on, it would have started counting up the miles, but I didn't even think of that when I was riding along. It was just like, oh my God, I don't have range anymore, and the gas gauge is blinking at me. What am I going to do? I made it, though. It was nerve-wracking, but it was fun. It taught me a little bit about my bike. Now I know that I can go 160 or so miles and not completely run out of gas. All right, folks, that's going to do it for this one. I want to thank you very, very much for joining me on episode 11 of the Motorcycle Adjacent podcast. Also, don't forget to check me out on YouTube as WaltInPA and my blog as well. It's WaltInPA.com. I'm on the usual social media sites. I've got a Facebook page for WaltInPA. I've got an Instagram account that I don't really use all that much. I've got a TikTok account, which don't really use all that much, but again, I'm out there. If you're on those social services and you want to connect, please feel free to do so. Send me a friend request. Yeah, so that's going to do it. Again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, ride safe, and I will catch you in the next one.